So, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today for the fourth episode of our webinar series. If we can go to the next slide. So, I'm delighted to present Stepping in the Right Direction, Making Active Transportation Work for Your School Community, which will be presented by Tracy Coots, the Active School Travel Coordinator from Ever Active Schools. So, now I will hand it over to Tracy, and she's got a wonderful presentation prepared.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. And Amber, thank you for joining us. And whoever else is out there in the World Wide Web, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll just get started. We have lots of good information to share, so very happy to be speaking on active school travel and the Alberta Healthy School Community Wellness Fund, and how both of them together are the perfect fit. So just to begin to tell you whoever Active Schools is and what we do, the vision of Ever Active Schools, of course, is that all Alberta students belong to healthy school communities that enable optimum health and learning. And our mission is to provide provincial leadership that promotes and supports healthy, active school communities through a comprehensive school health approach. Our priority is to lead, support, and connect work towards improved health and learning outcomes of children in Alberta. Okay, so let's get into this. Terminology that you'll want to remember. So for those of you who are new to active school travel or active transportation, active school travel is simply a human-powered means of getting to and from school. So this is walking, wheeling, which includes cycling, scootering, skateboarding, wheelchairing, what have you. Okay, any form of transportation that's human powered. Now, I will be referring to the school travel planning process in this webinar, and what that means, or school travel planning rather, is school travel planning is a proven approach that supports students in using active travel on their school journey, and it contributes to healthy, active living. And then, of course, comprehensive school health is an internationally recognized and effective approach for building healthy school communities. It can be used to address a variety of health issues and can improve health, education, and social outcomes for children and youth. Okay, so how do we fuse comprehensive school health and school travel planning together? And this is a very beautiful fit, actually. So looking in the center, we see the four pillars of comprehensive school health. We have the social and physical environment, we have the teaching and learning, partnerships and services, and of course, healthy school policy. So when we look at those four pillars, how do we attach those to school travel planning? So when we look at teaching and learning, we can look at pedestrian and cycle safety and traffic safety education. We can look at active school travel awareness events, project-based learning, school surveys and leadership, and curriculum connections. School travel planning fits very nicely into grade 4 and 5 curriculum. Around waste in our world and climate change. It's a very easy sell to schools because it has so many curriculum connections, and not just around geography and physical activity, but it has many around environmental stewardships and traffic safety and safety in their community. So there are many. Looking at the pillar of social and physical environment, we have we address pedestrian crossings, sidewalks and signage, bike shelters and racks, lockers, and also green commuting hubs, which we will discuss later in the webinar. Around partnerships and services, one of the main strengths of school travel planning is that schools make many partnerships. It requires many to make this program a success. And those partnerships include school boards, municipalities, and that's active transportation, traffic, roads, and planning departments, We partner with AMA Safety Patrol and other safety programs, police services, school councils. This list is there are many on this list, and this is not a complete list of all the partnerships and services that you use when you're implementing school travel planning in a school. And of course, healthy school policies. We address policies that create barriers to active school travel. And believe it or not, they exist in major centers like Calgary. The Calgary Board of Education has a no scooter skateboard um, policy. Some schools enforce that policy while others do not. We have policies around walk zones, budget decisions, drop off points, and busing policies. Yes, we cannot talk about active school travel without talking about school bus policies. It comes up everywhere I go. Okay, so why? Why do we do this work? It is important work. This is more than just encouraging students to walk and wheel to school. It is just not that simple. This is a community based program, and thus it's community based solutions. School travel planning is about behavior change. We are changing behavior from students, families traveling to school by vehicle, and changing that behavior so that they are reaping the benefits of active travel. And those benefits are improved physical, mental, and social health. Um, when there's uh, when there's fewer cars, there's less emissions, and that makes for healthier school zones. Um, and of course, less vehicles also equals safer school zones. So we have less people doing what they shouldn't be doing in school zones, parking where they shouldn't be, not waiting for pedestrians at crosswalks and so forth. But I don't want to turn this into a discussion of us versus them. This is, we're all in this together. We just want to increase active transportation because the benefits are so many. And of course, we can't talk active school travel without talking about how active school travel helps students to build those core competencies. And this is another sell to school if you're trying to onboard a school or get a school interested in active school travel, is that active school travel really builds on each one of these core competencies. I often talk about I am a mother as well as the coordinator for the active school travel program. So I think that really brings much to it because I often look at my own children's experience and how traveling actively has built their core competencies, how they've like traveling alone. Of course, I modeled that behavior. I traveled with them when they were younger, and taught them how to travel actively and safely. And as they grew older and now travel on their own, all of these competencies come into play. They have to solve their own problems. They have to manage information. If a traffic light is out, how do they get across the street safely? They have to communicate with me if they're going to be late and they're traveling, which route are they taking, and so forth. So all of those, you can link active transportation to all of these competencies. So again, another sell to schools. If schools are wondering if they want to take on school travel planning and active school travel, always mention that it supports this learning of these core competencies. All right. So how can the Alberta Healthy School Community Wellness Fund support school travel planning in your school community? Here we go. Let's exercise our options. Well, the first thing you can do, the first thing that the fund can support is staff costs. So one of the programs that we offer, one of the initiatives we offer is training and mentoring of active school travel facilitators in your community. Um, Now, how we go about this is we use the Canadian School Travel Planning Toolkit. This was a toolkit that was created by Green Communities Canada. It is housed on the Ontario Active School Travel website. This is an absolutely free resource. We do not own this resource as Ever Active Schools. We simply use it with their permission to implement our school travel planning programs. So if you and your community wanted to take this on your own, you absolutely can. These resources are available to you. We just happen to have quite a bit of experience implementing these school travel planning programs. So that's out there. So if you want to do it on your own, it's absolutely free for you to do this. You do not have to go through Everactive Schools. Again, our goal as Everactive Schools is simply to increase active, safe school travel in Alberta. That is our goal. Whether you do it with us or without us, that is absolutely your choice. But one thing that we do provide is training and mentoring to active school travel facilitators in your community. This staff cost, so these funds can also pay a monthly honoraria for facilitators. So when we're choosing facilitators, just to go back a bit, to take a back step, we always look at the people who are engaged with the schools. These are parents. These are parents who travel actively, who are already supporting schools, already involved and engaged in their schools, and they want to see improvements in traffic safety, in health outcomes for the students of the school. So those parents, those people are of interest to us because they're already engaged, they're already there, so they make ideal active school travel facilitators for us because they have the community connections that we need. Um, and so it's a very nice relationship so that when we're training them, we feed off each other because they are providing us the community information that we need, and we can provide the expertise in school travel planning. And it's a very nice working relationship. And also, funds can provide travel to professional development opportunities. Now, because as we talked about before, school travel planning touches on so many benefits. Like there are so many benefits to school travel planning. So it's not just health and wellness benefits and all the professional learning that comes with that, but there's also professional learning around traffic safety, around environmental stewardship, leadership opportunities. So there's very so there's many paths for professional development when it comes to school travel planning. Okay, so once we start training a facilitator, this is what it looks like. So every facilitator goes through, has to go through a step-by-step process. And what that looks like is the first thing we do is school setup. And this is simply selecting schools that want to participate in active school travel programs. And how we select schools, now you can argue that every school needs active school travel planning. It's just that simple because I haven't come across a school that doesn't have a traffic issue or doesn't or has 100% of students traveling actively and safely to school. So you can argue that there's a need for it everywhere, but what we really look for is champions. We can't work with a school that doesn't want to implement active school travel or school travel planning. It's very difficult. So we look for schools that want to champion this and move it forward. So they are the schools that we generally sign on initially. So the first step that the facilitator will be involved with is baseline data collection, and this is family travel surveys, student travel surveys, walkabouts and environmental scans, traffic counts, and traffic observations. We want to know what's happening at your school at the very beginning before we implement any action plan initiatives. We want to see where you're sitting. So that's the baseline data collection. And then from that baseline data collection, we create an action plan. And that action plan involves the 5 E's of school travel planning, and that what engineering fixes need to be made? Is education necessary? Do we need to educate about traffic safety? Do we need to educate about pedestrian and cycle safety? enforcement. Is enforcement needed? Have we tried to educate, but that education is falling on deaf ears, and we need to bring in some enforcement of those rules. Uh, Encouragement, so event days and so forth. Like, do we have a student leadership team who can move some of these event days, like International Walk to School Day, Wheel Week, Winter Walk Day, forward, to get more students traveling actively, and so that they can see the fun in it. Um, and then, of course, the evaluation pieces are already built in to this toolkit that Green Communities Canada has created. So with our baseline data collection, once we are at project's end and have completed all of our action plan items, we complete some follow-up data. So using the same tools we used for baseline data collection, we collect follow-up data, and then we compare, just to see if any of the actions we implemented had any effect on how people travel to and from school. And then, as I always say, once you're a school travel planning school, you're always a school travel planning school. So at project's end, we simply create another action plan to take you into the next year. And that involves, hopefully by that point, the engineering fixes are complete that need to be completed. And your school can simply focus on encouragement and education and enforcement if needed. And then, follow up with a student travel survey to see if people are still traveling actively, which of course is our goal. All right, so what does it look like in practice? So those are just words. That's what the process looks like. But this is the beautiful part of school travel planning. This is where all the fun and all the magic happens. So, as I said, when we first start working with a school, we work with parents, we work with staff, and mainly students to collect that baseline data, because we want as many eyes on what's happening outside that school as possible. So this is a school we worked with in Spruce Grove. Absolutely love this class. We worked with Cole Broxton Park students. So they wanted to focus on traffic safety in their front parking lot and along McLeod Road, which is right in front of the school. So here we have, in the cold of winter, we have students collecting some traffic observation data for us. And so we had students rather spread out all around the school so that we could see what the problems were all around the school. So these two gals are in the school's student loading zone, also known as the hug and go. And what they're collecting is just who's doing what they should be doing in the hug and go, and who's doing what they shouldn't be doing. Are they parking, or are they hugging and going as they should be? So they're collecting that kind of data. Also, these students participated in a walkabout and environmental scan, and what they noticed, so you'll see in the center picture, is that there is an electronic speed sign that records how fast you're going. But along McLeod Road, what we noticed was there is actually no speed limit sign. So it would record how fast you were going, but nobody really knew how fast you should be going. Like, we can all guess, but we needed to make sure that that sign was up. If you look to the top right of the screen, the students also identified that there was an opening in the fence that led to the very busy staff parking lot. Ecole Broxton Park is a very large school. It has between 900 and 1,000 students, so you can imagine how many families are there during drop-off and pickup time, plus staff. So, so this opening in the fence led to the very busy staff parking lot and bus drop-off zone. So what we were finding was that when students were coming in, they were actually using this space and trying to navigate their way through that busy and unsafe parking lot. So we just felt that that needed to be a whole bunch safer. And in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, you'll see there's a crosswalk. And parents were complaining that drivers were not paying close enough attention to the crosswalk. They were not waiting for pedestrians. The church is a very kind community partner for this school. They allow parents and families to drop off in their church parking lot to ease congestion around the school. This is wonderful, but parents, of course, were concerned with their students crossing McLeod. Um, so the students came up. So after they collected all of their data and created their action plan, they came up with some solutions and worked towards solving some of these problems. So this is where the students, so this was a group of grade 5 students who did all of this work. So you will see uh, along McLeod Road, there was a speed limit sign added. So students, so this group of students, there was 4 of them. They actually presented to the City of Spruce Grove, Parkland School Division, Facilities Department, and the Board of Trustees. So they presented and did one heck of a job presenting because they had so many changes made to their school zone to make it safer. So there's our addition of the speed limit sign. The school has formed a safety patrol to help students across McLeod, which is brilliant. And then they even had the opening the fence closed so that students can no longer access the busy parking lot. They actually have to take the sidewalk around around the parking lot, which makes it a whole lot safer. And I'll tell you, just from someone who worked with these students, the pride that they feel in achieving these changes to improve safety in their school zone is unbelievable. So, and this is about sustainability. We want these projects to be sustainable. So, the more that you can use kids, the more that you can work with students to make these changes, the more sustainable they will be. Okay, in the Brentwood neighborhood of Calgary, this is a separate project. This is Safer Streets for All Users. We worked with 2 schools, Captain John Palliser and St. Luke's School. And what we did was we actually painted a pedestrian path from St. Luke to Captain John Palliser, because around Captain John Palliser is not just the school, but it's the rec center, the community library, there's an ice rink. So it houses so many, it's a hub for community activity. Many schools in this area use this hub. So we wanted to make sure we wanted to connect the other schools to this hub of activity and make it a little bit fun for them. So what we created was this pedestrian pathway, pedestrian playway, in order to increase active transportation. And what we find is that a lot of schools are using this pathway because they find it fun. And we can't forget about fun because we're working with, a lot with K to 6, some with K to 9 schools. And students need it to be fun. Otherwise, they're not going to be engaged. So we worked with students to create this painted pedway. These are all student footprints. So we had all of our students trace their footprints, and we used all of their footprints to connect this 1.1 kilometer walking path for them. So that was a super fun project and actually very cost effective. We applied for permitting through the city of Calgary. They were extremely supportive of this initiative, I must say. And then the paint and our time painting, and that was about it. So a great initiative and very simple. Um, for this project, we also had students who led an active school travel Jane's Walk in Calgary, which was fantastic. We actually last year we had it was the best attended Jane's Walk in Calgary. So we were, and these 2 gals who are on the right of the screen, they were our student leads, and they were so engaging and wonderful. And they talked about the project and why their school was working on an active school travel project and what it meant to them. And yeah, it was just wonderful. And then that project ended with a bike rodeo pop-up street fair in St. Luke's, and we had so many community partners who came in to support us that it was done very cost effectively. Like we had bike maintenance, we had Melissa Marchenko from Handbike who created this wonderful obstacle course for us. We had a local church who wanted to participate. Urban Systems came in and helped out and handed out free bells and also did a bike decorating and bike wash station. So there were so many community partners that came together to make this happen. It was just lovely. Just a lovely day and so well participated. We had over 200 participants from the community, and the kids just had a great time. And of course, in that great time, they learned some great bicycling skills, had a bike tune up, learned some helmet fitting. So they went away from this experience safer and more informed about active transportation. So job done. Pardon me. Okay. Other schools, these are just some ideas. So, as a facilitator, when we train facilitators, we introduce all of our facilitators to these great ideas that are cost effective and that have proven to work in many schools across Alberta. So, like some of these initiatives are super simple, and these are the ones that are very simple. So, we do after our students collect traffic observation data, they uh, they analyze that data and look at some of the main problems in their school zone. So on the right of the screen, you'll see congestion is a problem at Stony Plain Central. So this student created a sign, reduce congestion, walk or wheel to school. In the middle, this is simply a very basic wayfinding initiative. So we just took a classroom of students and with a bucket of chalk and off we went. And the students created all of these fun playway ideas, as well as some timed 5 minutes to school with an arrow. This is wayfinding at its basic, at its most basic. But the students had a great time doing it. They're out, they're getting physical activity, they're chatting. It's great for their social and mental health as well. It's just a nice, easy activity. And of course, on the right of the screen, we have another sign. So this is simply poster board that students design and create, and then we laminate them, and then we hang them on school fences. Because one thing schools have, lots of sidewalks and lots of fences. So use what you have. Okay, and then lastly, just to touch on some of the initiatives that go on our action plans. This is a school that I'm currently working with in Tomahawk, Tomahawk School, and they started out by having no students walking to school. So it's a school of, I believe, 109 students currently. So it's a rural school, and every student is bused to that school, even those living in the hamlet site, which is 1.1 kilometers from the school. Um, so it is perceived by many families that the Township Road 512 that leads from the hamlet site to the school is unsafe for pedestrians. There is no sidewalk, there is no separate space for pedestrians to walk. So, but we wanted to rethink this because this is a goal of ours is to rethink active transportation in rural communities because oftentimes what's happening is buses are simply students are simply bused because they feel it's the only way to get them there safely. But we can argue that there are so many different ways of going about this, so many healthier ways of getting students to and from school. So this is an initiative, and I will show the video that accompanies this because it's super fun. Parkland School Division has a wonderful communications team that does these great videos to celebrate project work. So it's really wonderful to work with them. But on April 18th, in celebration of Earth Day, staff and students of Tomahawk School chose to make some positive changes. So they had the school bus, so they arranged with their school buses to drop them off close to the hamlet site, where those bus students were met by staff to walk to school. So supervised active transportation journey to school from the hamlet site. They closed the school parking lot, so staff, students, everybody had to get to school actively, even walking part way. And always remember, active transportation isn't all or nothing. Some families feel that they have to drive, like for whatever reason. We don't know everybody's circumstance. But even walking part way, even for these students to walk this 1.1 kilometers, this 15 minutes to school, that's 15 minutes of exercise they weren't getting before. So that's an improvement. Okay, always think of it that way. Like encourage if families feel like there's no way we can walk or wheel, well, can you park 2 blocks away and walk from there? Because every step matters. Always remember that. And then just to end this initiative, the students also participated in an advocacy walk ride to the Agri Center, and this school uses the Agri Center space for many of their phys ed programs for archery and so forth. So these students are being bused, like not only to school, but they're also being bused the 1.2 kilometers to the Agra center, that they could easily be walking. So here's the video that kind of sums up our Earth Day event. Please enjoy.
We went on this bike ride to the Agri Center from here and back. We did this today so that kids can have a safe route home and to school. Because the sidewalk actually ends before my house even.
Our school is approximately 1.2 kilometers from the center of town, so our students, because there is no safe route to our school, we have to bus all the students to our schools.
I have to ride the bus, and I don't really like doing that because I have to wait outside a really long time. I live right in town, so it's only like a 5-minute bus ride, but then we get trapped on the bus for a while.
They are considered rural ineligible students because they live within the 2.4 kilometers to the school, so we get no government funding for them. But yet we have to provide transportation because there is not a safe route or a walkway or a pathway to the school. So parents have no option in order to get their students to school other than to drive or to be bused. So they are charged a certain amount of money for that service, even though that they wish that they could walk here. Plus, the sidewalk ends 250 meters before the Agri Center.
We do archery at the Agri Center and a bunch of different activities. So it would be nice if we could walk from the school to events at the Agri Center.
So the idea is that we're advocating for a safe route to our school from the center of the community, as well as for the community, we're advocating that they need a sidewalk from the end all the way to the Agri Center, so that last 250 meters.
We did it to show that we needed sidewalks for everyone's safety, and we did it for Earth Day, so we didn't make as much pollution as we would usually.
Also, in celebration of Earth Day, we wanted to have a parking lot free day. So if you were to go into the parking lot, there's no vehicles there because we wanted to show that we can get around our community without gas and fossil fuels, etc.
The walk for me was really fun because I got to walk with my friends, and it was nice to look around, see everything that's there, and give my brain time to relax. I really liked having the fresh air and time to hang out with my friends. It was fun, it was energetic, it was tiring, and it was something we could do with our friends, our class, our community, and our school.
So the next step in our process is really looking at making some action and movement on the safe route to the school. So we're having a look at that, and that is really through our partnership and work with Ever Active Schools. They have a grant to work with our school and with the county to be able to create some kind of safe passage to the school for our students.
If I could make sidewalks, I would. I think it would give a more easier way to get to school instead of having to gas up, start a vehicle, and hop in, drive all the way here just to get out or grab some books, just hop in and go back. It would save fuel, save money, and it would just be funner for people to have a way to get here.
Everybody give yourselves a round of applause for participating in positive social change.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to that. We are moving forward with this initiative in Tomahawk. The reason I wanted to focus on Tomahawk, the reason I've included this is because it's so important to include rural communities. Because when they think active school travel, so many rural communities just just say no. Because there's so many issues around getting kids to school safely, be it crossing highways, school bus issues, and so forth. But I just wanted to include this to say, you know what, it's time to rethink that rural school travel. And these students are moving this initiative forward. They have surveyed fellow students and families. They have performed traffic counts to dispel some of those perceptions that people are speeding, that the road, that Township Road 512 is heavily traveled, so that they can move that idea forward, and will be working now with Parkland County to add some signage to their township road and come up with other ideas as to how they can make that route safer for those who choose to travel actively in that community. Okay, so another way that you can spend some of your wellness fund dollars is through seed funding. We always write this into many of our projects, actually to all of our projects, that schools get their own money to develop their own ideas around active transportation or environmental stewardship. These are some ideas that some schools have used their funds for. So they have used it to fund their bike rodeos and other special event days. Maybe it's having, coffee, coffee and hot chocolate and granola bars for those who are traveling actively on that day. It does not need to be a $500 venture. It can be simply something that costs $50 to $100 and everybody's happy. And it's just an incentive to get people traveling actively. Other funds may go to some bicycle racks, or you can see in the back of the picture on the left, it's a scooter skateboard tower. So storage for different modes of active transportation, because as we know, many students are choosing to travel by skateboard, by scooter, and we have to make sure that we have spaces for them to store them safely. Other schools have other schools and other school boards actually have um, offered an active school travel poster contest challenge. This was one that Linwood School created. This is Linwood School in Edmonton. And what we did was we turned that student's drawing, that student's poster, into a banner, and that hangs on the school fence. So it's just a source of pride and that constant reminder that active transportation is a great option. Other ways. So this is part of a project that we use. So another way of spending project funds and well spent project funds. So these were videos that were created by Van Colden. She is a mom of 3 kids in Calgary, and she is an active transportation advocate and is just an absolutely wonderful person. So I was introduced to Van and followed her on her Rolling with Van, and learned that she did some wonderful things around active transportation in her community. So we actually hired her on to create some sound bites for us around active transportation. I've included the link to all of the sound bites, but this is just one. It gives you a sample of some of the like the product that she has created. These sound bites are shareable by all, so please feel free to take them and share them on your own social media website. So it's social media platforms. And it's absolutely free. So please do that, because what we find is that we need to reach people outside of the school. So we need to reach those who are sitting in their cars outside of the school. And one of the best ways to do that is by being as visible as possible. That's why we do a lot of posters on the fence. We do banners on the fence, writing with chalk on the sidewalk. And another great way to reach those parents, those in the community, is through social media. So here is a great example of something that you can share through your social media networks.
I'm going to give you my top 3 reasons for walking to school. I love winter walking because it's so pretty with the snow and the trees. And last, you walk to school, you can leave snow other people. Not backpacks. It's so beautiful.
I know what you're all thinking. Fabulous. Okay, so yeah, that's just one way that you can reach the broader community, is through social media, of course. As I said, please feel free to share Van's sound bites. They are included in that link, all of the ones that she's created thus far. She'd be thrilled, and quite frankly, they are wonderful. They're both encouraging and educational. Another way to spend funds is through some subject-based resources. So on the right, Constable Daniel Woodall School worked with Edmonton Police Service to create a traffic and parking plan for their school. Inside this brochure that's handed out to parents who are coming to the school, new parents, as well as those families who continue to attend Constable Daniel Woodall. There's a map. It shows parents where they can park, where they can't park, and it also promotes active transportation. So it's wonderful. That's just a great information resource for schools, especially the larger schools where congestion is a main problem and leads to many safety issues in that school zone. I will play one more video for you. Sorry, seems video heavy to me now, but it seemed like a good idea when I was including them. This is a traffic safety video that Nellie Carlson created. This is shared on their Facebook page to inform parents of the problems that exist around traffic safety at Nellie Carlson School. Now, this school just happened to have a parent who was a videographer, so he put this all together, and this cost them some just a couple keg gift certificates and honoraria. So it was very cheap for them to make. Students created it. They did. They created it from beginning to end. So, and they star in it. So it's really nice to see. This is a very effective tool that they can, because it's very specific to their school. And this is a type of resource that many schools can create, because you would be surprised who does what in your school community and who's willing to support and help out when it comes to making the school zone as safe and healthy for students as possible. So here's their video.
Hi, my name is Aras, and I'm in grade 4.
I want all of us to arrive to school on time. Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm in grade 5 and I want everybody to follow the rules. Hi, my name is Christian and I'm in grade 4. I want all of us to arrive to school safely. A few of us students had the opportunity to participate in tracking traffic behaviors at our school, and we found a few things that could make us better. Our school has students from kindergarten to grade 9, and we want to make sure that we are all doing our best to keep everyone safe at all ages. Our school has supervision starting at 8:10 a.m., and kids can be dropped at the school to play and visit before we have to get to our studies. The first bell goes at 8:18 a.m. and the second bell is at 8:24 a.m. and we should be settled in out classes ready to learn. For that first bell, traffic around the school seems to be safe and slow, but that sure changes after 8:18 a.m. It's important that we cross the road safely. When crossing the road, we need to point, pause, proceed. First we stop, pause, and then look both ways. Point across the street that we are crossing and ensure we have eye contact with the driver to ensure they are stopping and see we are crossing. Once all is confirmed, we proceed safely across the street. On average, we have 50 students arriving late and as high as 75 on some days. It's embarrassing being late. Everyone looks at me when I walk into the class. I feel a rush and behind when I get to school late. Let us share some of our favorite ways to get to school. Hopefully we can encourage you to find active ways to get to school that allows you to enjoy your travel to school with family or friends. It doesn't matter how we come to school, as long as we all stay safe. Walk, ride your bike, scooter, drive, and walk part way. Let's all have a safe, active, happy journey to school. Travel safe!
So just another great resource. And many schools do traffic safety videos as part of their action planning. It's just a great way to involve students. And in this case, and in many cases, it's very cost effective because oftentimes schools or the parent community will have someone who has those skills that they can bring to that project. So it's really wonderful. But if funds are needed, funds are there through the wellness fund. Another way to look at spending wellness fund dollars is through professional development to build capacity. Again, we work with many different organizations, and these organizations host many different professional development opportunities. We work closely with the Alberta Council for Environmental Education, and they host many conferences and events. There's traffic safety in services and conferences, Walk 21, provincial and national active school travel webinars, and municipal active transportation engineering seminars. This list is by no means complete. There are so many ties to school travel planning and active school travel. There's so many links for profession and so many opportunities for professional development that really the sky's the limit. Speakers, so you may want to hire some speakers to come into your school to talk to students, to talk to staff too, about active transportation and education around that. This is Carly Coleman. She's the CKUA bike traffic reporter, and she's speaking to students at Nellie Carlson about winter cycling. This school had had so many students who were cycling fall, spring, and summer. But in the winter, that was tailing off. So we wanted to encourage that behavior in the winter. And so we brought in someone who is an avid winter cyclist to talk to the students, and Carly did an amazing job. So there's honoraria that goes with coming and speaking. So, and that was paid out through some funds. Okay. And then finally, 3 and 4. So, how to spend your funding dollars through meeting costs and evaluation. So active school travel and school and regional stakeholder planning meetings. So setting up lunches and so forth to get everybody together, talking about project review at your project schools. This is just a nice way to gather. There's also, you can hire out for professional evaluation, but as I said, those evaluations are already built into this project. But if you don't have time or the skill set to complete that evaluation, you may want to hire out. And then, of course, to disseminate and share the results of your project. So we've had great success in follow-up data collection and having success at our schools. Generally, if your school implements a school travel planning project, you will see between 5 to 7% increase in active transportation at your school, so that's wonderful. But how do we share that information? How do we get that information out? So I've included on the right Sultana Macready's study of of school active transportation champions, simply as an example of a great infographic. This is what I find when you're disseminating information. Nobody wants to read through a 100-page report. When the information is provided in such a manner, it's very appealing, it's very informative, it touches on all of the high points. This is a great way to share information. So Sultana has done a wonderful job in sharing the results of her study. But of course, you can do it through infographics, you can do it through presentations. So presentations to such things as Shaping the Future, by just to put a little plug in for Shaping the Future, pamphlets, social media, any way to get the word out that school travel planning, active school travel, is a great way to spend your funding dollars, and also it's a successful program. When you have an engaged school community who wants to implement this program, it's almost guaranteed success. So with that, I'd like to thank you. Active school travel is worth your investment. And I'd like to see if there's any questions. Okay, on that note, I'd like to thank everybody for joining. I've really enjoyed chatting, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have. I've included my email, so please email me directly. I'm very happy to discuss active school travel planning for your community. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. I think we're very fortunate enough to be able to have somebody so passionate about the topic present to us. So, with that, I would like to extend my thanks to the participants today. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your time. We do not have any more webinars planned for this school year. We do have several new topics with new speakers coming up in the fall, so keep an eye out for those. And thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.